Welcome to episode 125. And as business owners, we often talk about how we can scale our businesses and scale them sustainably, because if you go really fast or if you go really slow, it can cause a whole set of other issues. And of course, the role of tech and AI and data is just becoming larger and larger. So today I'm joined by Matthew Forzan, who is the Managing Director of Yoghurt Digital, to discuss how you can build a data-driven culture that enables your business to scale. And Yoghurt Digital is a Sydney-based digital strategy agency specialising in SEO, CRO and data-led UX. And Matthew has spent over 20 years in the industry and helps businesses grow by blending performance-driven marketing with user experience insights. So welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate you having me here.
No problems. I'm really excited about this topic because I think there's a lot that we can use when it comes to data in businesses, but sometimes people don't always understand how they can use it in their own. So it'd be great to hear about your journey. So I think to start there, could you tell us about your team and what does growth look like for your business right now?
So team-wise, we are 15 odd. Primarily based in Sydney. There's a few people in different parts of the world for various reasons, and I think the preference is to be in-house, which is where we're working towards. In terms of experience, we have a mostly senior team, and that decision was made a few years ago to really just bolster up the agency to be able to put ourselves in a better position in market. We split across all the services, as you mentioned, so everyone in the team is a specialist. That's what they do. That's what they love. They're very deep in those topics, but then they're also broad in the sense that they're across the other service offerings that we have, so that they become a little bit more well-rounded. Yeah.
Very good. In terms of your growth as a business, when did you start?
We started in July 2014, so recently turned 11.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's been a pretty interesting decade and a bit. We've gone through things like COVID, which marketing was very heavily impacted, and then got a nice upside on the other side of it, which skewed a whole bunch of things. We've then had to go through privacy laws and different ways data is tracked, and there's quite a lot of change. E-commerce obviously booms, so those are the types of things that I think the team has been on the journey with as well.
Yeah. Obviously, you use a lot of data for your client engagements, but what about how do you use data for your own business and team decisions?
So I kind of think about it in a few ways. One is, if we're looking at it pragmatically or just from a systems perspective, is trying to track as much as we can where it makes sense. Making sense being, we don't have a strict policy of tracking how long someone has a lunch break for, like that's a little bit irrelevant, but absolutely tracking how much time they're spending on projects to make sure that those projects are delivered on time, that they're profitable for us, that we're not, under or over servicing. So those things are quite important. We track more, I guess, at a qualitative level, the team, what they're working on outside of projects. So everyone has goals or different activities, rocks, if you call them that, that they're working on to better support themselves, the team, and the wider agency. And we have a solid tracking mechanism for that as well. And we're also able to kind of put a lot of that information on top of each other so that we can see at scale what that means to move the business forward. So various ways that we're doing that at the moment. We're also doing a bit with AI where we're able to feed different information that we have access to help it build us some next steps, but also do cool things like integrate reminders through our Slack system, so we can get pinged on certain events, and it just means it's one less thing the team has to go and check themselves.
And you mentioned big rocks. So for those that haven't heard that terminology, it basically comes from Stephen Covey, who you can Google this. It's on YouTube, where he talks about if you have rocks and you have gravel and then you have smaller rocks and sand, if you put the big rocks in first, everything will fit in the jar. If you don't, then you're putting all the sand and the gravel and the smaller stuff in first. The big rocks won't fit. So the idea is that your emails and the stuff that you just get caught up in every day is all of your sand and your little bits
Yeah.
and pieces, and your big rocks are the things that you need to focus on. So I'd love to hear more about how you introduced that to your team. Do you have big rocks at an organizational level and you cascade them down, and do you use a system to do that?
Yeah, something like that. System we'll come back to. I think there's a system in terms of how it's all tied together, but it's not a specific software suite or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think the zoom out of it, or the lens that we look at it on, is there's obviously a lot of work to do. Like you mentioned, the emails, the phone calls, the meetings, the deliverables for clients. And that does make up majority of people's time. But we also know that there needs to be a deeper level of engagement, excitement, sort of mind shifting as well, where people want to contribute to the bigger picture. And that's where these types of things come in. So mentioning before, hiring, more senior people, we want them to be battle tested essentially to come in, but we also want them to look at the way we've been doing things for the last 11 years and challenge some of it based on their previous experiences. And so one rock for somebody in an SEO role might be to analyze the current process pool and find efficiency. So that would be a rock or a project that would run over a quarterly basis. How we do that, back to your, I guess, original question, is we kind of do it top down in the sense of where do we want the company to go? How do we get there? And then distill that down through departments and then individual team members to all build almost like a bit of a pyramid to help it go in that direction. So using that example, we know if we're able to deliver work more efficiently, it means that team or those team members can take on more work with the same time they have available to them, which therefore makes us more profitable. If we're more profitable, it means we can invest in other activities, be it social or marketing events or technology or anything like that. So they all have a bit of a connection to each other, and there is a bit of an overlap. In terms of systems, we have we have reporting meetings where will be company all hands. We talk about those things all together. We run something called a quarterly conversation with every team member as well. So we'll sit down and go through the standard performance expectations, all of the BAU equivalent work, but then we're also checking in on those rocks and projects to make sure that those are all going well and aligned. There's also a big component where we're wanting input from the team members as well. So we're certainly not assigning rocks and saying like this is what you need to do, like there's your due date, good luck. It is a two-way conversation. We find where things work best is when we can align passion with priority, right? So we do our best to communicate what we're trying to achieve as an organization, and then have the team members input how they feel like they can support that.
Yeah, I love that, and it sounds a little like not what people think about when they think about agency land, as it's usually called, which is work as hard as you can, please. So I think that's awesome that you've got that structure in place that does have that input. You're having those quarterly conversations. And I'd love to know, that obviously it tells me that you care about your workplace culture. So how would you describe the culture of your business, and is that different to how you would want to describe it?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the journey. So I kind of see things, and I think a lot of the world sees things a little bit pre-COVID, during COVID, and then post-COVID.
So true.
Because I think especially in the workplace, it's changed significantly. So if we look pre-COVID wise, our team was 5 days a week in the office. We still had opportunity to work from home or remotely if there was a rental inspection or you're not feeling well, or those sorts of things. And I think culture at that point was a lot more personal, where everyone knew each other so well to the point they knew what people's favorite shoes were, because they'd be wearing the same shoes every day, and what coffees they had, and all of those types of things. I think were a lot stronger in that world. Then we had the COVID. We worked from remotely for I think about 9 months, was the directive, and that was a really tough time because we were such a close-knit team, very social. all of that went away. So we found that we had to, or we wanted to rather organize things like Zoom parties where I think one to memory, we did like a drag bingo thing where had everyone on a Zoom call. We hired this entertainer, and we did things like that. We occasionally jumped on and played like Scrabble and things with each other, like an online thing. So that was really important. And I think, culture means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But in those two examples, I'm talking more about cohesion with people knowing who they work with, what that work is doing, how they collaborate, all of that sort of thing. We're now obviously post-COVID world. And I think there's a bit of a permanent change in how people want to work and how they work best. And so our directive has effectively been, well, we're 3 days a week officially. Some people work more than that. And the way we've split it out is if you are wanting to or needing to be collaborative with someone else in your team or another team, then ideally you do that in person, right? Yeah. So you'd come into the office to do that. If you're meeting a client, same thing. We're very big on, meeting in person, shaking hands, doing all of that traditional stuff. And if you've got a big deliverable, huge analysis project, something that really just requires you to work by yourself, then work wherever you feel like that's best. And for a lot of people, that would be at home because they're not getting the tap on the shoulder to say, hey, do you have a question? Can you help me? Like those types of things. So I think it's a bit of a balance, and I don't know if we or anyone else has found the perfect answer yet, but that's what it looks like at the moment. We are, and I guess talking more broadly about culture, we're very much looking for people that fit our culture with regards to the attitude they have to work and learning and, understanding that, yes, it's, agency life, as you mentioned, where there's deadlines and sometimes we need to work back and do those types of things, but also not here to just tick a box, but to contribute and to build something, better than what it is when they walked in the door. So that's a little bit about how it's changed. But yeah, certainly there's challenges about remote work and things like that. But I think we're in a good place now. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. And so what do you think works well in terms of retaining people? Because it's also an industry that you're working in that typically has higher levels of turnover. So what are the things that you do to try and retain the great people that you have?
So I think the rocks that I mentioned is important because there are other agencies that load people up with 50 clients to their portfolio, and it's make this work or you're fired kind of thing. And I think that still exists in a lot of agencies. And for those people, they get burnt out. It's not enjoyable work. It's very easy to drop balls and work on client number 44, but completely forget about client 13. So that's a big thing, and it always has been for us. We going back to the measurement of the metrics that you asked about, we make sure that we understand true capacity of the team for resourcing, and we have conversations about them for that as well, because we don't want it to just be a metric on a page and we think everything's fine. When we go speak to them, that's not true. So we connect the dots that way. So work, resourcing, effective, rocks. We're very transparent about what we're doing in the company and, ask for contribution to that as well, which I think when people buy into the vision, the direction that we're heading, they like to do that. We do have so we've been in Surrey Hills for about a year now, and part of the decision to come here was to build upon that culture. So to have, we've got a very comfortable office. There's lots of things to do here. We've got interactive whiteboards and different meeting rooms and things like that to be able to collaborate more effectively, which I think, again, ticks a few boxes with regards to retention, but also with the culture and collaboration. And I guess, speaking on the other side of all of this is, it's a very competitive industry. I think, for us, for example, if we were going to push more days in the office, then some people might not want to be aligned with that, and they might want to go look for a remote role. So we have to be conscious of those things. Very conscious as well that a lot of other agencies, perhaps the bigger agencies, the global agencies, have deeper pockets than us. And so that's where, if we're looking at someone who's just wanting dollars for dollars, then they likely don't end up really working from that perspective, because we do want people here for the right reasons, which is, work hard for the fair rewards, and then the rewards come later. So yeah, the quarterly conversation is really good because we ask very openly what's working, what's not working, what are your goals personally. Like we've, had conversations about people wanting to have weddings or purchase property, and, really unpack that to see how and if we can help them with those things by alignment of the success they have from their role. So yeah, I don't think we've figured it out fully just
I don't know
yet.
that anyone has.
But those that that's effectively the things that we say in the interview process. Is, we just ask very candidly, like, there are thousands of agencies you could apply for, like, here is what's different about us, and if that sounds good, like, let's keep talking. Yeah
Excellent. And when I'm speaking with business owners, something that often comes up is people say, I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be leading a team. I just kind of thought that when I got more work in the business, I could just hire people and they'd come in and just all get done. Have there been any people related challenges that have surprised you, or anything that you wish that you knew earlier about leading a team that you've discovered on your business journey so far?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I think this is like the best question ever, and you speak in different circles and everyone will have something different to say about it. I like to be a bit more positive and optimistic about things, and I know other people are very jaded and a little bit maybe traumatized by certain situations. But I think, the best thing about people is also the worst thing, is that they're unpredictable and unique, right? And so going back to the fit of who we are and being very clear and intentional about that, and then also having the support processes, systems to back it all up, and connecting those two things, we find that we figure it out pretty quickly whether it's going to work out or not. Other surprises, we've had someone recently who we had a visa issue, for example, and has had to kind of live overseas for a little bit while we work that out. And that's something that everyone in the team was concerned about, is like, how do we bring her back home? We like her around. This sucks that this has happened. What's the company doing? What can I do to contribute? All that sort of thing. And so we're looking like we're near the end of that now, but those are one of the things that, like, was a surprise, right? And we have to react to it. So yeah, I always like to see the best in people. And there's a lot of trust there, and it's something that I feel like we start that relationship with trust. And because we have so many communication touch points and an open culture, like, one of our values is to tell it like it is. We find we pick up on those things pretty early, but sometimes they don't come up, which is more of the challenge of how we solve that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you. And it's people definitely aren't widgets. And I've had some clients that work in more of a product base, and they're like, why can't people just be like these products? It just kind of comes off the assembly line. But like I say, it's one of the great things, and one of the most challenging things perhaps about having people. So look, thanks for joining me today. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more about Yoghurt Digital?
So you can check us out on our website. There's a bit of information there in terms of the work that we do and who we do it for, and who is on the team and that sort of thing. Me personally, I'm most active on LinkedIn. So I, from time to time, will post something there, but I'm always open to a chat there, a coffee, beer, what have you. Yeah.
Excellent. And we'll put the links for your website and your LinkedIn profile into the show notes as well. I really enjoyed learning about your business and your culture. So thanks for coming on
Karen.
Today. And for everyone listening, episodes are released on Mondays. So click subscribe and you'll be notified of when it's available. And if you've received value from this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a rating or a review over Apple Podcasts or Spotify, so someone else can also find the episodes to help with their business. And of course, if you have any questions, ideas for future episodes, head on over to amplifyhr.com.au or connect with me on LinkedIn and we can start a conversation.